What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the In the Paint podcast here on the network. We break down everything that men's college basketball has to offer. With me, as always, is my co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's February, and I don't care what the groundhog says. It looks like spring outside of my window. It's beautiful in Southern California.
Yeah, 70 degrees. I was picking up my nephew today and had my little kind of overcoat on and was, no, it's warm today. Yeah, we are standing in the sun. Yeah, it's flip-flop weather. So definitely good stuff. And I know Raider Jim, if he sounds extra chipper today, it's because, as we'll get to here in a bit, that game that we didn't think he'd be able to attend, and he's going to be able to see his Gonzaga Bulldogs later tonight. So very excited there, very happy for him. But we will get to that momentarily. Before we do, as always, let's start with the rankings and some changes, but not so much, obviously not at the very top, some in the top five, but Auburn remains undefeated, or I'm sorry, not undefeated, remains at the top spot after they're continuing to ride a 18-game winning streak, looking like really kind of the teams that's come out of nowhere to maybe be a definite title contender. Beyond that, it's going to be Gonzaga, UCLA moving into the 3 spot. Purdue and Kentucky round out the top 5. Obviously, Kentucky, huge win over Kansas. Yeah. Interesting for me to see Arizona not only fall out of the top 5, but drop 4 spots. They didn't lose a game. I mean, okay, they beat Arizona State by 11, and I know maybe there are going to be people that say they should have won by more, but that's a rivalry game. That's a tough look, I guess, from the at least pollsters' view of the Pac-12. But down the list, we also have Houston still there at number 6. They haven't lost since mid-December, and that was to Alabama, moving all the way up there. Illinois, kind of a slow start to the season. They've won 3 straight, including 2 over Michigan State and Wisconsin. They're all the way up to number 18. And the biggest fallers of the group in the top 25 are Kansas. They dropped 5 spots from 5 to 10. A little tough there, losing a good Kentucky team, but it is what it is. Currently, no mid-majors in the top 25, of course, with the caveat not including Gonzaga, who maybe technically is, but certainly isn't. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the top 25 overall?
Yeah, the Kansas game was a real surprise to me. I knew it would be a tight game, a close game. I didn't think that the result was going to end up the way it did. And great game by Kentucky. What can you say? Wisconsin, the team that has surprised me, because they're that horse that came out of the gate pretty good. And, they may not have been at the front of the pack, but they were right there, 3rd position, 4th position. But boy, they have really fallen off. The one team that's coming on, and I'm glad to see it, is Marquette. Marquette they played, I think it was Villanova last night or the night before, really took care of business. So watch for Marquette to continue to climb. And as you mentioned, Illinois, I think Illinois is, this is the time of year, all those racehorses, as we talk about horse racing and things like that. This is it. The pack is settling, and you're going to see the cream of the crop start to rise.
Yeah, I agree. And even when we get kind of the games to watch over the week, I mean, there are so many, and it's really because there are so many good teams. There's really, I mean, I can't remember the last time I put together a list, and Rutgers was on that list as a game to watch. But this was a team that, of course, beat Purdue earlier in the year, and a team that's been on the rise over the last few years after, of course, winning their first tournament game, I think 2 or 3 years ago. But, fantastic stuff out of the Big Ten. I think probably the best conference, obviously the Big East as well. It's really tough in those conferences, like you said, even for Villanova, a really good team, but at the same time, they run into the buzzsaws, Providence, Marquette, teams like that. And then you got the others that maybe aren't the big time powers, but have plenty of talent. The St. John's and the DePauls, maybe not overall talented, but definitely some players there that you have to deal with pretty much every single night. So,
and I did take advantage of that Providence game the other night against St. John's. I was like, okay, they're going to leave the line at +3 for Providence, and I'm going to ride that one all the way to the bank. And I rode it all the way to the bank. I was very fortunate.
And that was interesting because of course you had texted me like, wait, what's going on here? Like this is St. John's -3 against Providence. And obviously St. John's being at home, I guess somewhat, is part of it. But even then, if you take that out of it, at least in football thinking, that's 3 points. That's essentially, a wash, kind of the same thing, maybe, a little more, but Providence has played a lot of close games. And I think a lot of the pollsters look at that and go, okay, well, I haven't blown this team out or, done this against this team. But I actually prefer, look, you're going to win those 4-point games. That tells me you know how to finish teams off. You know how to make the free throws.
Right.
Because it's difficult to replicate that when March rolls around and it's not, we didn't get them tonight, but we'll get him tomorrow. And worst case scenario, we have the conference tournament. When March rolls around, there's a chance that next, missed free throw or whatever could be the difference. Just ask Derek
absolutely
about that one. So, and that is so huge in college basketball is, the free throw shooting. It's very underappreciated, I think. But, going back to Providence, I think over the last 2 or 3 years, maybe the bettors and maybe even the lines makers have fallen in love with Providence, and it's hurt them because I've been there. It seems like the last 3 or 4 years, they're that hot team and something crazy happens and you just wonder what you were thinking the whole time. I think maybe others are thinking that as well. But as long as Providence keeps doing what they're doing, I think Raider Jim and myself, once again, keep making them underdogs on the road against average Big East teams. Let's be honest. That's what St. John's is. So good stuff there out of Providence. Really, really good program.
Absolutely.
So moving on to our player spotlight this week, going to be looking at the junior forward, even though I put senior there, but a junior forward out of USC, Isaiah Mobley. Of course, his brother Evan was one of the top picks in last year's draft, also out of USC. But Isaiah, the older brother, another fantastic player. He's 6'10", plays the 3, maybe even the 4. Really, one thing I've seen from him, obviously for probably a good chunk of his life, he's probably been referred to as Evan's brother. It's kind of the unfortunate side of it. Isaiah Mobley is a fantastic basketball player, but Evan Mobley is a really good basketball player. Moving on, he was a one and done. Isaiah working on things, but the one thing is 3 years here at USC is he's improved in pretty much every single category year in and year out. We're talking points, threes. I will say 3-point percentage has taken a step back. But last year, I think it was around 43%, which look, if you're 6'10" and you're north of 40% from 3, shooting 3 or 4 times a game, that'll play at the next level, big time. So that's taken a step back. But my biggest, I guess, positive, 2 big positives. First of all, he's not a very good free throw shooter, but he's constantly improving. Once again, I think his freshman year is 52%, and then 54%, all the way up to, I think, 66% this year. Once again, not great, but is getting better. Even in his last 5 games, 13 out of 16 in those free throws. Once again, kind of hammering it home late down the stretch. You're going to need those guys who can hit free throws, might force the ball to Mobley. He'll need them to kind of be that guy to make those clutch free throws. And the other thing I've liked a lot of, he's doubled his assists per game. Once again, not a huge amount for a big 6'10" guy, but it was around 1.6 his sophomore year, averaging a game, all the way up to 3.3, which once again, not exactly a triple double candidate, but still, if your guy 6'10" can be at least just a little bit of a threat to kick that ball out or drop some nice passes, I think it discourages teams from the double team. And I think USC has fully grasped that, and they have, obviously had a great year. It's pretty much when they don't play Stanford, they're almost unbeatable. They for whatever reason cannot beat Stanford, but they have some big games coming up as well. But Isaiah Mobley, maybe trying to get out of his brother's shadow, if you will. He's having a very good year, just under 15 points a game for the USC Trojans. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the junior forward from Southern Cal?
Yeah, he is one big kid, let me tell you. And I just consider him a hometown boy, really, because he's in Temecula or Murrieta, but to me, that's still close enough to San Diego, which I'll get onto that in a minute. You hit on some of the same things that I actually had made notes on. First of all, for a big kid, he can shoot good inside and out. You know, he plays the points well. It is that 3-point game. He was 13 for 36 from going back to the beginning of January, and that's not his strong suit, which is not to say he can't come around it, because he's a worker. The kid never stops working, so he'll continue to work on that, develop that, and hopefully for him going into the end of February, beginning of March, it'll become a little better for him, more productive. But the one thing I made a note of was, even though they lost the game to Stanford last week on the 27th, that kid had 9 assists. That's a big kid to be dishing out 9 assists, and that's one thing that stood out for me. His rebounds could pick up a little bit too. He had real strong December, 6 games through the month of December, closing out non-conference, where he had double figures in the rebounds. He could come up a little bit more on that, but all around, great solid player. And like you said, he's Dom DiMaggio. I mean, what do you say? You know, my brother, oh yeah, you're Dom. Yeah, we've heard of your brother, Joe. So, but I think he's a great player. Got to do some work to make it to the next level. Might end up in Europe after next year, but I think if he sticks around and he doesn't, stray off, he goes back to finish out his collegiate career at USC. I think he's going to be up there. He's going to be a nice kid to watch.
I agree. I think the size, a lot of these kids, it's the old give them a hamburger. You know, they got to put some meat on their bones, but that is what it is. A lot of times when you're 22, I'm sure you could watch what he eats and you go, wait, and you're still only, obviously he's a big kid, but it's just the metabolism. Sometimes, you can, feed these kids left and right, but you know what, they're still going to be that. It's just the metabolism there. The one thing I like that you brought up was his work ethic. And I've heard a lot about it, and it kind of follows that, I guess, mindset of, and I don't want to say overshadowed brother, but let's face it, most people are going to know Evan. And I think for a lot of his career, he's probably had to work harder because he has had that, and he's had those expectations no matter what, that, oh, you're Evan's brother. You must be really good too. And he is, but then, he has to work for those things. I think another essentially year and a half, finish this up. And then of course his senior year, I think he does have a really good chance to play at the next level. But I think overall, I think for the best bit of his game, I think this is a quintessential European player. Right. We've seen the Danilo Gallinaris come in and, playing like the big guys that can shoot and stretch the game. Obviously he wants to play in the NBA, but I think this guy could do a lot of damage in, Spain, Brazil, places like that, that can have a great opportunity.
And going back to the work ethic, their dad was no slouch.
Yes.
Their dad was a heck of a college player, smaller college. He was at Cal Poly or something like that. It was one of the smaller schools, did play a little bit of pro ball, but, he knew how to develop. He went through all the training. He knows what it takes to be a basketball player. He's taught these kids, and they did well in high school. The high school they went to, they were quite a tandem on I think they were 5A, CIF 5A team that ended up winning everything. So yeah, he's built to be a basketball player.
Yes, that whole family there, definitely in the genes there. Moving on now, going to check in there with Raider Jim on those Gonzaga Bulldogs and take a look at the West Coast Conference. What you got for us, Raider Jim?
No surprises in the West Coast Conference. It is at this point the Zags to lose. And they are, every year it sounds like, well, come on, is this cliche? Quit being cliche. They're more focused than I have ever seen them. They are more focused than last year, and they were focused last year. But this group of guys, and I've been watching it since the beginning of the season, and I looked online right now. Again, you got a team that's averaging almost 91 points a game. They're averaging 45 rebounds a game. The starting 5 are all averaging in double figures. And go on to the number 6 level, Anton Watson. Anton's at just under 9 points. So if he goes off a couple games, you're going to have 6 guys in double figures. That's remarkable. But overall, they're sharing the spotlight. It's not a one-man team. Drew Timme, of course, is the leader. Chet Holmgren, of course, is the wonderkin that they talk about. But you watch that team play, and they are spreading it around. When one guy's having an off night, they've got three guys that come in and fill the shoes. They're playing at USD tonight, who USD is actually number 3 in the West Coast Conference right now. A little bit misleading. They've had to play quite a stretch of games. I almost feel bad for them tonight, and that's not to demean them or their caliber of play. But since the 20th of January, this is going to be their 6th game. That's a stretch. And Gonzaga hasn't played that kind of a stretch. So I have no idea what's going to happen here tonight. It should be a good game. St. Mary's is coming in at 2nd place, and then it's again it's USD. Then we've got BYU. A little bit disappointing because I had higher expectations for University of San Francisco, and they have started to not drop off a lot, but they've just had their struggles since they took that game against Loyola, Chicago Loyola, as a makeup when they couldn't play the Zags. And again, you and I talked about it. Maybe they're going to rethink that one. Are they going to look back and say, maybe we shouldn't have gone to Utah and played that game? But anyway, they're a little bit back down to earth now, and reality is setting in. But West Coast Conference, it doesn't look to me, if it was me right now, I would tell you maybe they can get 2 teams into the tournament. I do not see West Coast Conference getting 4 teams into the tournament like you thought, like I thought, like the Commissioner Navarez thought. At this point, they just don't have the strength of schedule.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. Obviously, Gonzaga could stub their toe in the conference tournament. It would open up a guaranteed situation. But like you said, it's going to take a run.
All you got to do is beat Gonzaga.
Exactly, and you're probably also going to have to beat another really good team on the way there as well. So right. It's very difficult looking at that. But, I think for the conference, obviously you want 4 teams in, right? But knowing that you're going to have a really good chance of having the national champ, I think the West Coast Conference will feel good, because let's be honest, you could put 3 or 4, 5 teams of the West Coast Conference in that tournament. There's still only one that really has a chance to win the national championship.
Correct.
And that's kind of, what it's all about there. But, the West Coast Conference still in very good hands, very good conference. And, it's going to be going off around 6 o'clock, 6:30 tonight. And I know for those USD kids, like you said, they're going to be excuse me, they're going to be tired, and it's going to be probably a little draining. But I can't even imagine kind of what the thought process was when they got the text message or the coach told them, said, "Hey, we're going to play Gonzaga. We're going to play Gonzaga here."
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah, it's just like, okay, you want to talk about an energize or a jolt.
It is.
Okay,
you're right.
Boom, here we go. And because as we said before, this is everybody who plays Gonzaga, that's their national championship. They could hang their hat and say, you know what? I was at USD for 4 years. We weren't terribly good, never made the tournament, but you know what? We beat Gonzaga one night. Unfortunately, though, it's going to take a lot for USD to get it done, but we'll keep an eye on that.
You said the key word. They're probably going to be tired. The last 3 games where I've watched Gonzaga play, I cannot believe the intensity and the energy they play with start to finish. I mean, they are just up and down, and it's almost like they're all smiling when it's like, you guys want to run? Let's run. Let's do this. And they just go back and forth, and they wear down the other team.
Yeah, I'd keep an eye, at least from a betting side of things, I'd keep an eye on how what the second half line is, check it at halftime, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's a close game the first half. And then I really do think in the second half, around the 10 minute mark, I think it's all going to just kind of hit USC. It's like the adrenaline kind of wears off. Like, oh God, we still got 10 minutes with these guys.
They're still running.
Yeah. And we played our best basketball and we're still down 8. Still got 10 more minutes. They just brought in fresh guys that are still probably better. It's going to take everything, and then probably a lot of luck and then a little more just to be within 10, and who knows, but you never know. Crazier things have happened.
Weirder things have happened.
Yeah. But moving on to my side of things, of course, the San Diego State Aztecs and the Mountain West as a whole. Looking at San Diego State first and foremost, they only had one game since last time we spoke. They got the win over New Mexico. New Mexico, not the normal New Mexico. They are 1-8. So a nice win for San Diego State, but nothing really to hang their hat on. However, for the Aztecs, currently 4-2 in the conference, 12-5 overall. That's good enough for essentially tied for third with Colorado State. Of course, they already beat Colorado State, but that could possibly, come into context on Saturday. Friday. Yeah, it's a Friday night game. Right. Colorado State will host San Diego State. Obviously, the Aztecs are going to get a great showing from Colorado State because I think the Rams are going to, take exception to the domination that the Aztecs kind of handed out to them in the second half. Earlier this year, when the Aztecs kind of played a bit of an impromptu game with Colorado State, as both the Aztecs and the Rams opponents were sitting things out with COVID. It was just easier to get them in. Then San Diego State got the job done. Colorado State will want to get one back on them there. And then after that, San Diego State on Sunday will face Nevada. Nevada is towards the bottom of the Mountain West. And if you do look at the Mountain West as a whole, as I pull up the standings, there they are. Obviously at the top right now is one of the hottest teams in all college basketball. It's the Boise State Broncos. They are 8-0 in the conference, 17-4. They have won 14 straight games. The only thing I will say, at least from an at-large look, while 17-4 looks amazing, some of their losses are not what you would really like. Look, St. Louis and Temple, those are good Atlantic 10 teams. That's one thing. 2 losses between both Cal State Bakersfield and UC Irvine. With all due respect to those Big West programs, that is not going to look good going into the tournament. Boise still has a lot of work to do to get in, by their at-large merits, if you will. Behind them is Wyoming at 6-1, who've had a very, very good year as well. Already lost to Boise. However, they will get a chance to even that up a little later in the weekend. Colorado State, of course, 6-3 is third. San Diego State 4-2, technically tied with them currently. Behind them, Fresno State, UNLV. Surprising to see Utah State down in the 7th spot. Nevada as well. A lot was expected out of them. Air Force, New Mexico, and at the bottom at 0-8 is San Jose State. But there are definitely some big games coming up that we'll get to. Obviously, the Colorado State, San Diego State game. And then I believe Boise and Wyoming do face off this weekend as well. So for the Mountain West, all eyes are kind of on Boise if they're going to kind of slip up. And I think for Boise, they're just trying to get as many wins as possible to make it absolutely impossible for the committee to overlook them despite their early season struggles. But overall, Boise in the driver's seat. Colorado State, a big opportunity this weekend to kind of get some distance between themselves and the Aztecs, and conversely, the Aztecs with a win this weekend would obviously own the tiebreaker by winning both of their matchups. So it's a big game for both, and that will, of course, be Friday night. I believe that's going to be on Fox Sports 1 as well, 6 o'clock Pacific, if I do believe so myself. So with that, moving on to some of the games to watch this week/weekend. And wow, there's a lot. Let's start Thursday. Of course, the night we are recording, the 3rd of February, you got UCLA at U of A. I think in the Pac-12, there's a chance you're going to get one seed. I don't think the committee is going to give them 2 1 seeds unless something crazy happens. This might be a big decider right now. Conference tournaments, the championships, UCLA, if these 2 teams played in the conference tournament and everything, and they're number 4 and number 5 in the country, I don't think the committee really looks at that game because it's for a trophy, but this one right here, I think, is a big indicator of what the committee is going to want to look at. Another one as well here on the West Coast, big one in the West Coast Conference, San Francisco heading to Provo, take on BYU. Friday night, we have the San Diego State at Colorado State game. Saturday, wow, what a slate we have for you Saturday. Started off in the morning, UConn at Villanova. Then you got Illinois at Indiana, Iowa State at Texas, Michigan State at Rutgers. Once again, Rutgers has already beat one of the top teams in the country in Purdue this year. Don't sleep on the Scarlet Knights. You also have Baylor at Kansas, the kind of new power versus the old school power. USC at University of Arizona. It's going to be another one for the Wildcats. Two games in 3 days against two really good teams. Keep an eye on that. Duke at North Carolina. Maybe not the best North Carolina team we've ever seen, but it's still really talented, and it is still Duke. And UNC, the last time Coach K is heading to Chapel. Kentucky at Alabama. Bama was, of course, one of the upstart teams early on. They faded off, a chance to get back into it here. And then a big one for Raider Jim, Gonzaga at BYU. Might be the best chance for any team in the West Coast Conference to give Gonzaga an L, would be the BYU game in Provo. And then Sunday, there's a good couple. Loyola Chicago at Missouri State. That Missouri Valley Conference is a lot more competitive than you would think with Loyola Chicago. There's also, I think, Drake in there as well, Missouri State. That's going to be one that really kind of separate those two. We also have on Sunday, Houston at Cincinnati. Houston's been on fire. Cincinnati, a team that's kind of right there in the standings. Big test for them. Monday night, Kansas heads to Texas. That'll be a good one in the Big 12. And then 3 on Tuesday, Wisconsin at Michigan State, Auburn at Arkansas, and Illinois at Purdue. And then another one for Houston on Wednesday. It's going to be Houston at SMU, another team in the AAC and SMU that's been really, really good. But Raider Jim, all those there, which is the one that you're looking forward to the most, or any others that caught your eye?
Well, I will tell you, I'm very glad, of course, to go see Gonzaga play tonight. That it's a 6 o'clock game means I'm going to be able to pay closer attention to the UCLA Arizona game, because that was a real surprise to me. That UCLA did the number they did on Arizona. I thought it was going to be closer. We'll see if home court advantage does anything for Arizona tonight. The other one that is really, really, I've got my eye on is this weekend when Baylor takes on Kansas, because Baylor, wow, I'm nobody's perfect. Okay, they were last year, I get it, but this year I really did not. I didn't see them dropping some of the games they've dropped. So they're already down to, I think, number 8 in the rankings. And it's going to be interesting to see that, they can move up in another place or two if they take care of business. If they don't, and depending what happens in front of them and behind them, you might see them drop down to 10 or even out of top 10, depending on what final scores end up being, things like that. That's going to be a good one. And of course, BYU and Gonzaga on Saturday. The first matchup, if that's any indicator, Zags rolled them the first time out, which was a shock to me. Of course, it's nice that you don't have to sit there and chew your nails in the last 2 minutes of the game, but it was a real surprise too. Like, wow, are they that good? So we'll see if BYU goes back and watches the films and figures out a way to slow these guys down, or if Gonzaga says, let's do what we did the last time.
Yeah, there's so many good. Saturday is just, like I said, you can just sit down for 12 hours. Yeah, and wear out your previous channel button with some really good games. I'm really intrigued by the UConn Villanova game. This is UConn's return to the Big East, if you will. Obviously, there was the big shakeup. UConn went to the AAC, and the Big East basketball essentially kind of went private universities only. The ones that don't play football. And Connecticut obviously does, not very well, but they do play football at the D1 level. So they were in the AAC, and they worked out the situation with they could go play in the Big East basketball. And I think that's great, because UConn is one of those big powers, and the Big East is, it is kind of the East Coast power, at least the northern side of it. A lot of really, really good teams. That's going to be a good one. Villanova has been so hot and cold. You look at this roster and the experience and the coaching and all, and you wonder, how is this team not one of the best teams in the country? And You know, some of the losses they've had have been absolutely just, I mean, they've gotten an extra year of Colin Gillespie, who maybe not at the next level will be a huge star, but is one of the best overall players at this level with wealth of experience. It is a little frustrating to see, but if there's one thing that I think we've seen with Jay Wright is if he gets this team playing right in March, I don't care what number what number is next to this team, they're going to be a dangerous team with all that experience, that great talent, and great coaching. You don't want to go up against these guys 2 minutes left in a game tied in the chance to go to the Sweet 16 of the Elite Eight, because they're probably going to make the right decisions and you're not.
Tournament time last year when Gillespie rolled his ankle. Yeah. Is that correct? And when that happened, it was the whole Villanova nation was like, oh no, now what? And it did. It impacted their game. So to have him back, as you're saying, okay, so he's back, he's healthy. So head scratcher, because I'm with you. I would have thought they'd be top 10 for sure.
Definitely. Look, as an Eagle fan, and I am a huge Villanova fan as well, the pressure of that area, that region, and, with the success they've had, it's only kind of amplified that. There's no doubt about it. I think it's gotten to some of the kids, but that's the best part about college basketball is, for the most part, for Villanova included, they're going to have a chance to play for a national championship. Obviously, if this was football, we'd be talking about 4 teams and, they lost their 5th game, so they can't play for it. That's not how it is. All you got to do is get a ticket to the dance, as they say. And unless something crazy happens, Villanova will get a ticket. It just depends on who their dance partner will be there. But with that, Raider Jim, any final thoughts here for our latest edition of In the Paint?
No, I'm trying to not jump up and down and act like a child, but I can't help myself. So I guarantee you I'm going to roll up to Jenny Craig about 5 o'clock and see what's going on. I'm going to try to run into Dan Dickow if I can, because he's usually meandering around. And as will Adam Morrison will be walking around too. Adam's kind of quiet though. He's still that very much this stoic, stare at you type of a guy, and he goes in and out from underneath. Dickow will walk around up top. Richard Fox walks around up top. And then, my grandsons will be with us. And so we've made it a practice that we kind of hang out where the bus is afterwards and get their picture taken with some of the prime guys. And yeah. So it was interesting because I looked at those pictures. I went and got some printed out for them to have with them tonight. And it was 2 years ago, the last time that the Zags were here, or that we could attend the game.
Yeah.
And so the difference in looking at them now, and thankfully one of those images I got is them with Drew Timme.
Yes.
So that's going to be good. I hope they have a chance to see him after the game.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's I think you sent those pictures our way when that had happened. That was one of the definitely the better parts, and that was right before I think all of our lives took a bit of a turn, if you will, before COVID hit. But great to see. Just
for fun, I'll see if I can get myself with a picture next to Chet Holmgren.
There you go. Yeah, I know. Well, you're gonna have to zoom out on that one. But yeah, that'll be worth some money down the road too, the way he's been playing these days. But I cannot wait for that game, and the UCLA Arizona game as well. But for Raider Jim and his family to kind of keep that tradition going. It's a nice little bonus because this time last week, I don't think you ever expected this. So you get an opportunity to go see that. And then also do want to give a shout out, of course, to our other co-host for our NFL. It is Coach Lupian's birthday. He can finally have a drink of alcohol. He's 21 years old. That's his story and he's sticking to it. But happy birthday, Coach.
Happy birthday, Coach.
Yes, we'll be with him next week when we do our Super Bowl preview if everything works out. So make sure you listen to that. And if you follow him or whatever, give him a shout out on social media. I wish him a happy birthday. But thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the In the Paint podcast presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Have a good one.
Go Zags.